Greetings, loved ones. The services and supports that at-risk or neglected children and their families need vary greatly depending on the type of neglect they experienced, the severity of their situation, underlying risks, strengths, and many other factors. Analyzing the information gathered during the investigation and assessment is essential to developing an effective case plan in collaboration with the family, their support network, and related service providers. Today we're going to talk about prevention and intervention of child neglect. Help us get these messages out. Please subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit the like button, the notification bell, and please share these messages with others. You never know, you could save a life. It's really important that we begin early. Children are most likely to be harmed by neglect the earlier they experience it, although it can be difficult to prevent neglect and identify it in its early stages. You can have a greater impact on families the earlier you intervene. At this stage, assess the parent's readiness to enhance their parenting abilities and help the family focus on meeting the child's developmental needs. Assume that parents want to improve the quality of their children's care, and they just need support to identify and build on their strengths. Let's talk about cultural competence and neglect. As with all child protection practice, cultural issues must be taken into consideration both when assessing and intervening with families at risk of neglect. For example, a culture in which shared caregiving is the norm may see no problem with allowing young children to care for their siblings, perhaps in a way that does not conform to cultural norms in the United States. When working with diverse families, maintain focus on ensuring that children's needs are met and that they are not harmed or endangered. Consult with knowledgeable staff or community members on how to best intervene in a way that is consistent with families' cultural practices. Another thing we need to do is provide concrete services first. Most parents cannot focus on interventions like parenting classes when they are still addressing crises in their family. In the early stages of working with the family, we need to be sure that basic needs are met before expecting parents to fulfill other aspects of their case plan. Some concrete supports to address include things like housing and utilities, food and clothing, safety for domestic violence victims, transportation, childcare, health care, and public benefits. It's really important that we focus on strengths. You can form better relationships with families when you encourage them to focus on positive parenting strategies and supports that they already have in place. The 6 protective factors that we described earlier can serve as a framework for assessing family strengths and helping them identify ways to build upon those strengths to protect their children from harm. We need to offer customized, coordinated services. This is really important. We need to be flexible. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to addressing neglect. Offer or refer families to a broad array of services and collaborate with other service providers to ensure the family's needs are met. And some of the most common services provided by the Federal Child Neglect Demonstration Project grantees included things like parent education and support, home visits, referral or links to community resources, mental health services, concrete assistance, and crisis intervention. Home visiting programs, which provide in-home services to families with young children, show promise in engaging parents to reduce risks related to child abuse and neglect. Professional or paraprofessional home visitors, they can build relationships with parents. They can tailor their visits to address the family's needs and strengths. So some of the topics these home visitors may address include things like the mother's personal health and life choices, child health and development, environmental concerns such as income, housing, and domestic or community violence, family functioning, including adult and child relationships, and the family's access to services. It's important to understand that things don't change all at once. We need to encourage incremental change. I'm going to repeat this. Most changes don't happen overnight, especially with families that are stressed by the demands of caring for their child. Parents may feel overwhelmed if you expect them to accomplish too many goals too quickly. In collaboration with the family, establish a contract with a timeline for accomplishing specific goals as well as obligations for both you and the parents to meet. And remember to start with the most basic needs: food, housing, safety, etc. Then address critical underlying issues like substance abuse and mental health. Once those supports are in place, there will be fewer obstacles to improving higher family functioning. Many programs have found that working with families affected by neglect requires intensive long-term services to help them achieve changes over time. Intensive family preservation services provide short-term crisis support to high-risk families to prevent unnecessary child placement in out-of-home care. Children and families experiencing severe neglect may benefit from these kinds of services to address urgent issues like housing or financial assistance, followed by ongoing family preservation and support to target underlying factors. Another thing we need to do in cases of child neglect and intervention is to address the social support network. This is really important because your time with the family is limited. A strong social support network for the family can reinforce lessons learned and address needs as they arrive. So seek out relatives and friends, community members, and other service providers who will help the family practice and build new skills over time. Positive relationships with other caring adults can help support the child's healthy development and serve as a source of respite for parents if they face future crises. Another thing that we need to do is put aftercare services in place. As the family begins achieving major goals, developing a roadmap for services and supports after more intensive interventions end. An aftercare service plan will ensure opportunities for follow-up and help families maintain improvements over time. Let's talk about training. Effective training is important for caseworkers addressing the complex issues faced by at-risk or neglected children and their families. Training on child neglect should emphasize the following strategies. 1. Address definitions of different types of neglect as well as the importance of cultural competence in understanding how neglect is perceived in different cultures. 2. Describe long-term consequences to counteract the common but inaccurate belief that neglect is not as harmful as physical or sexual abuse. 3. We need to help caseworkers learn how to develop a positive, helping relationship with families, a key contributor to success when providing long-term intensive services. And 4. We need to use case studies to demonstrate the complex interaction of issues that can impact the effectiveness of intervention. Because neglect is still misunderstood by many professionals serving children and families, ongoing training can help caseworkers remain aware of the latest research and refresh skills over time. Child neglect is the most prevalent type of child maltreatment, but has historically received the least attention from researchers and others. While there appears to be growing interest, child neglect continues to be a complex problem that is difficult to define, prevent, identify, and treat. Neglect is a term used to encompass many situations, but their commonality is a lack of action, an act of omission, regarding a child's needs. Neglect most commonly involves physical, mental, educational, or emotional neglect or inadequate supervision. Neglect can range from a caregiver's momentary inattention to chronic or willful deprivation. Single incidences can have no harmful effects, or in some cases they can result in trauma or death. Investigating and assessing neglect involves a thorough examination of the child's safety and risk, as well as the larger family and community context. To understand neglect, caseworkers should know how to address related problems such as poverty, substance abuse, and domestic violence. Interventions for children and families affected by neglect require customized and coordinated services. Defining, preventing, identifying and treating child neglect is a significant challenge, but one that researchers, professionals, communities, and families must face together if they are to protect children from its harmful consequences. According to the CDC, listen to this. According to the CDC, over half of all children in the world, 1 billion children ages 2 to 17, experience violence every year. The question is not if you'll encounter a victim of violence. The question before God is, what will you do when you do encounter them? You could be the person who saves a life. You are called. We are all called to be champions for justice. Those who suffer violence need to know that those who love them and those who don't even know them will reach out to them and give them the help they need before it's too late. Help us get these messages out. Please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit the like button and the notification bell, and please share these messages with others. You could save a life. If you're a victim of violence, listen to me. You are valued. You are loved. You are intelligent. You are worthy. God does not want you to suffer violence. He wants you to live free from violence in peace and tranquility. There is a way out. It's not your fault. Abuse is not love. You are not alone. If you're a victim of violence, reach out to someone today. If you find yourself in a dangerous situation, call 911 for help. If you know of a senior citizen or a child or a disabled person or a woman who is suffering violence, tell the authority. In our next episode, we're going to talk about long-term consequences of child neglect and abuse. Until then, God bless you.